Vera heard the car coming before she saw it. The headlights crested the hill at the end of the street, and the engine knocked with the stress he had put on it for the nearly 30 miles he would have had to have traveled to get here. She knew that he would be coming, and that he would be pissed. He would be violent. He had likely been drinking since he got out of work at 5, which gave him 6 hours to get absolutely loaded. The lawyer said that the papers would be served today, that she should go stay with family until his initial anger wore off. It wouldn't. Her sister Brenda insisted that she come stay with her for the weekend, while Craig packed his things and got out of the house. She didn't want to feel like a burden on her family. They assured her that she would never be a burden, and she had relented. She waited anxiously for any sign that Craig had been served the divorce papers, pacing anxiously as the kids played in the fresh snow. Eventually she joined in with them, and for a moment forgot about the anxiety that had eaten away at her since she filed the paperwork. Phone calls started 3 hours before and hadn't ceased. As soon as one call ended, another would come. The times he did leave voicemail set shivers up her spine. "If I can't have you, nobody is going to. I'm going to fucking kill you," he said. "Somebody is going to get hurt tonight, and it's not going to be me, bitch." The last straw was the prostitutes. She knew he hadn't been faithful for a long time, but when he was arrested for luring prostitutes into his work truck with crack cocaine, that was the line in the sand. She filed the divorce paperwork the Monday following his arrest. The car's exhaust billowed in the cold winter air. It snowed most of the day, several inches covering the roadway, as the tail end of the 98 Skylark swung dangerously out of control. "Oh fuck, he's here!" screamed Vera. Her sister had already woken her niece and nephew, prepared to escape out the back door should he make his way into the house. Paul, her brother-in-law, stood waiting, 12-gauge shotgun in hand. "If he comes in here, he's a dead man," he said angrily. The Skylark roared up the road at a reckless speed. He cut the wheel too sharply and missed his turn, skidding through her sister's snow-covered yard. The front end slammed into the dirty pile of snow and ice they shoveled from the driveway earlier in the day, and the front end of the car went airborne, headlights shining into the sky and illuminating the still-falling snow. They looked like tiny white dancers fluttering silently in the night. The car rested atop the pile of snow like an adventurer reaching the summit of Everest. "Paul, he's getting out of the car," Brenda said, hurrying the kids towards the kitchen and to the back door. Still trying to get them to get their winter boots on. The kids argued about leaving their dad and Vera, but a few light whacks from Brenda got them going the right speed. "Where the fuck are you, Vera?" She heard his slurred speech, and his shambling, lanky silhouette shambled up the icy driveway. He looked like a zombie from an old Romero movie, the ones she used to stay up late watching with her dad. "Brenda, get the kids out of here," hissed Paul, racking a shell into the chamber of the shotgun. "Don't," Vera said, placing her hand calmly on the gun. "Don't shoot him." "If he comes in here, I'm cutting him in half with it," said Paul bluntly. "I mean it, Vera." She stepped outside. "Go home, Craig. It's over." "Fuck you," he shrieked. The neighbors' houses began to light up. "I called the police, Craig. Get out of here," yelled Brenda from the doorway. She had returned for her own boots, having forgotten them in the fray. "I'll fucking kill you, Brenda," Craig yelled, finger jabbing with each word. "The fuck you will," yelled Paul, stepping into Craig's view for the first time, raising the shotgun, the barrel leveled at the drunken man's chest. "I'll empty this damn thing, Craig. Leave." "Tough man with a gun," laughed Craig in a sing-song. "Put that thing down and let's see how tough you are." Paul outweighed Craig by nearly 70 pounds. It wasn't all muscle, but most of it was. Craig was wiry and always looked stretched too thin now. The alcohol fueled his confidence to his detriment. "Hey, some of us are trying to sleep," yelled one elderly neighbor from the safety of his screen door. "I'll kill you next, old man," Craig hollered, his fist raised in the general direction the voice had come from. "Craig," said Vera, "you aren't killing anyone." He made it to the front porch of her sister's house by now, struggling to keep his balance on the slight incline which had led to it. She stood before him, arms crossed. She wasn't going to give in this time. "Come with me now," he said, his voice filled with dead hate and spoken through gritted teeth. "No," she said matter-of-factly. "You need to leave. It's over. I'm not putting up with this anymore." "I'm giving you one more chance, Vera. Get the fucking keys to your truck and get in." Again with that same cold voice. He shook with rage. His eyes were bloodshot. She could smell the sour whiskey and beer on his breath. She pulled the keys from her coat pocket, throwing them at his feet. They stuck in the snow like daggers. "Take your damn truck. I don't want it." It was true. She hated that damn truck. A massive Ford F-250 that guzzled gas and garnered stares from passerbys due to the obnoxious lift kit and exhaust he had installed on it. "You think I'm just going to let you leave, huh?" he chortled. "Is that it?" You don't have to let me do anything. I will do whatever I want, and I want a divorce. He struck her with a speed that she would have thought impossible in his inebriated state, grasping at the collar of her shirt and tearing it down the front as he did, exposing her bra. Vera saw stars and felt a trickle of blood from her nose that spilled over her lip. He hadn't broken it, but damage had been done. He hit her twice more in the face, each blow rattling her closer to unconsciousness. Paul raised the shotgun but couldn't fire it without risking hitting Vera. He tossed it inside and dove from the porch, tackling the both of them into the snow. His 250-pound frame slammed into them at full force. Unfortunately, Vera took the brunt of that blow. The wind had been knocked clear out of her, and she gulped like a fish out of water. In the distance, Vera could hear her nephew and niece screaming for the neighbors to let them in, their frantic cries stabbing at her heart. She had brought this mess to their doorstep. She could hear glass shattering, and the screams were joined by yells of confusion. She wondered what the hell was going on over there. She made it to her knees, only to be kicked in the stomach by Craig, who'd made it to his feet first. Paul was behind him, yanking at his waist, trying to keep him from reaching Vera. She gasped dryly, but no air would enter her lungs. For several seconds she thought she might be dying, that he had ruptured her lungs and she would die in the snow-covered yard, but eventually she sucked in air as tears streamed from her face. Air! Paul lifted Craig into the air, throwing his weight backwards, and slammed him headfirst into the snow. He scurried free of Paul's grasp as if unaffected, and darted quickly at Vera, throwing his arm around her throat, pulling her to her feet, and holding her between Paul and himself. Stay back! I'll break her goddamn neck, he hissed. He sounded like a venomous snake in her ear, and she shivered at the sound. He squeezed tighter and she choked, gagging at the pressure he was applying. Her arms clawed helplessly at his arms. Let her go, Paul yelled. Toss me the keys now, said Craig, gesturing at them with his head. They still lay where Vera had tossed them, plunged into the snow like some mythical sword in the stone. Vera could see the blood in the snow. Her blood. It looked black in the snowy dark. She knew she was going to die tonight. Vera nodded at Paul frantically, trying to will him to give Craig the keys, if only so he would relax the grip that he had around her throat and allow her to breathe. Her vision began to darken as Craig squeezed tighter yet, just to prove his point. Okay, surrendered Paul, hands up in surrender, as he retrieved the keys. Give them to her, Craig demanded. Paul edged forward slowly, keeping his hands raised. Vera saw the fear in his face. He carefully placed the keys in Vera's outstretched hand, and she handed them off to Craig, who relieved some of the pressure. She gasped in sharp breaths that burned at her throat and lungs like breathing smoke. He dragged her toward the Ford. Paul followed, but she showed him her palm, telling him to stop. She had never seen Craig like this before. It had gotten bad many times, but this was a whole new level, even for him. You cowardly prick, Paul said, fist balled in anger, staring after them. She could see every bit of him wanting to tear her husband into bloody pieces. Craig only smiled at him as he forced Vera into the truck through the driver's side door, shoving her hard. Her head connected with the passenger window, violently rocking her head. He climbed in behind her and fired up the truck. It was then that he pulled the pistol from the back of his pants. He had somehow managed to keep it during the scuffle and now pointed it at her. Sit there and shut up. He threw the truck into reverse, hurling rocks and ice at the underside of the truck, and loud bangs and clanks. Several struck the house, punching holes into the vinyl siding with loud cracking blows. He hurled it into drive, the transmission lurched violently, and the truck slammed forward. He sped through the yard, the truck rattling violently across uneven snowy terrain. He hit the stop sign, which sat like an exclamation point near the garden and the road. The sign showered sparks in the night as it was thrown across the concrete. It would have gone through the neighbor's picture window had it not embedded itself in the tall flower box in their yard, sending chunks of wood and plastic flying. Craig slammed the brakes, throwing Vera into the dash, laughing as he did. The truck came to a stop broadside of the house. Paul still stood in the yard, watching the chaos in shock. She heard the electronic whirring of the driver's side window and saw Craig raise the pistol and aim it. You're dead, you fat fuck, he cackled maniacally. He was completely insane with rage. Vera's head ached in dull throbs like a slow poison taking effect. Paul threw himself to the ground and tried to stay low as he looked for cover, crawling towards the house. Craig pulled the trigger 3 times. He turned to Vera, bloodshot eyes wide with excitement. Told you I was going to kill him.